Captain, you ready? Captain.
What the? I guess I'm the captain now. Proceed.
What is going on, everybody out there in podcast land?
Hello, my darlings.
Yo, yo.
How
What's
are
going
you
on?
tonight? Man, we got a special episode for all of you tonight. We are joined by Yellow Skunk Farms, whose page on Instagram stopped me in my tracks the other day as I was scrolling through. Check him out if you haven't seen him, please. One of the more impressive setups I've seen in a long time.
I've seen a lot of grows, a lot of grows. And I have never seen anything that looks like this.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Indeed.
It's pretty wild, that's for sure.
It's like a real self-taught masterclass. I think, like we were kind of chatting a little before the show.
It is. Yeah. It's about 3.5 years of YouTubing it up, baby. That's it. That's YouTube education right there. And along with, a lot of trial and error and
I love it.
but I got led into a direction by listening to a lot of good people. So, and people that knew what they were talking about, and I just put everything together and used the knowledge that I had growing up as a kid, dealing with, having a koi pond out here on my grandparents' property for the last 24 years. Grew up around Christmas trees, tomato plants, you name it. We were growing it around here, my granddad, but we were conventional farmers. And that's kind of how I started, growing. But I didn't start growing cannabis until 2020, until COVID hit. When I got, everybody got a little scared and shit, we better learn how to grow.
No, you gotta.
That was my idea anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
I hit the journey then and just happened to, I got hit a wormhole and here we are.
Man, that's great. It's I think a lot of us kind of got into it right around there. I mean, we all saw the supply chains falling apart, and the first thing we all thought was like, "Oh my God, what if I can't get my weed?"
Exactly. The first thing in my head was like, "Oh shit, we better learn how to grow."
What will I do?
I mean, I had tried it before, but never successfully. I never put a lot of effort into it though. So, it was always, I was living in a mobile home for 21 years until I moved in here. I was living in a single wide. So, I wasn't growing. It's pretty hard to grow in a single wide. Anything good anyway. And
I
didn't know
Ricky
what I was
on
doing.
Trailer Park Boys.
I know a lot of people that can, but I couldn't. And I just didn't have the equipment. I didn't know what I was doing. Really, I didn't put a lot of effort into it.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I tried, I failed, and I just didn't try again for 10 years. Until 2020, really. And I found a bag seed, and that bag seed found its way to the koi pond, and it grew right beside the koi pond in this little pot. And I noticed that the roots just blew out the bottom of the pot and just went straight for the koi pond.
Huh.
And that's kind of where, kind of started. And then I went into a little bit of aquaponics, and I was like, let me see if I can do this aquaponically. And I grew a couple of plants, but not very well. I didn't realize that you still had to supplement, some nutrients in the water when you're doing, straight out of a pond. If you don't have enough fish, if you're just using, small fish or some goldfish, you're gonna have issues. Like what I'm running right now, I have nutrients in my bed. I started with a good soil, and that's what basically this run is going to hopefully keep getting better as I keep adding soil to it. But I'm not going to be adding the same soil that I used. So I started with some big worm organics, but I added my own IMO3. I've added mulch. I've added a lot of different things around the property here. A lot of ferments that we make right here. A lot of FAA, a lot of fish amino acid.
Wow. All from like the pond you're right by. You got the source of fish right there.
Catfish from the river. Yeah, I do it
Wow.
with catfish. Yeah, buddy of mine and me, we love to go catfishing. Catfish tournament. So when we go catfishing, we load up. And I've got buckets of it. I mean, you don't need but so much. I mean, 1 5-gallon bucket will make one grow enough FAA to last you 10 years.
Holy shit.
It's unless you're using it on a big farm, but I'm talking about just growing a little bit of, cannabis in your grow, it would last you forever. I mean, because you're not using a whole lot of it. I mean, it's like 5 mils per per gallon, you're making a 5-gallon bucket of it. So, you go figure.
Oh, it's
But
a real like closed loop system, or organics, like the final form of like regenerative organic growing would be to make your own nutrients, recycle your waste back into your nutrient processes and all
that's
that
it.
stuff. Having animals do the work for you and breaking down all that waste and turning it into good
I have
stuff.
one rabbit right here in the house here. He stays in the house with me. I got 2 dogs sitting right here beside me, and I got one rabbit in a cage sitting over there in the corner, and she produces everything we need uh, for my grow. I mean, that one rabbit. If you have 10 rabbits, you could do a whole, 2-acre plot.
Wow.
They produce. I mean, that's all they do is eat and shit.
Yep.
I thought they fuck a lot too, don't they?
Yeah. They do a lot. They do a lot of things. They reproduce, eat, shit. In that order.
That's not a bad life, man. Not a bad life.
Nah.
It's pretty simple, but I'll take it.
Especially, not if you get released in a garden that looks like yours, man. My lord. All right, so what I want to do is, I just want to bring up your page, man. Like I think the story kind of, can be told through the pictures that you post on your YouTube, your IG, but I want to hear, the man himself kind of break
man.
down what we got going on. And I think I've found like went way back on your page, and I might have found around the beginning, and we'll just start from there.
Yep.
Yeah, looking at it now, it seems so like daunting, and for somebody to have that as an end goal, that seems unbelievable to me. Like, did you have this specifically as your end goal, or did it just kind of continually get larger and larger and larger and larger?
I built a model, actually. He's going to bring it up here in a minute, probably on the Instagram. I think it is. And that's where the original, I had it in my head. I just had to I don't really draw very well. I'm not a good drawer, but I can build pretty well. There's the little clay model. And
Can I enlarge it here? Hold on.
Wow.
And
Why can't I enlarge it?
But anyway, that's out of clay. I just made that out of clay, and it's actually terracotta clay, but it's just not baked, basically. So you can mold it and do whatever you want with it if you get it wet. And basically, this was the idea in my head, but it changed as I went, you know. So once you get into a project like this, especially something that I've never done before, like I've never built anything like this. That's why I went with the model first.
What's the purpose of the channels?
The channels, well, in that video, you really can't tell because, like in my head, I can see the water. In your head, you're like, what the fuck is that? But but the channels, the holes that you see there are basically, in my head, are filled with soil,
Okay.
and the water is running through and around these soil pockets.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's like
Okay.
islands of soil, and
That's
then
Yeah,
wild.
a moat,
yeah,
right?
you got islands of soil, and the water is going to be coming from the top of a mountain. It's going to be flowing down the mountain and through a channel. And it's going to hit that channel. It's going to flow all down. And it's going to be able to hit all sides of all the beds. So
That's
each side
wild.
of the bed will be hit by water, and be able to wick water out of the channel, basically out of the creek that's flowing by it. And what I didn't realize at the time of this, I thought I was going to use terracotta clay. So at this time, in my head, I was picturing me building the creek and forming the creek out of terracotta clay. And then I was going to take that terracotta clay and bake it in sections, because you've got to get terracotta clay to a certain temperature in order for it to wick or to hold water. It's ancient Chinese. You know, the Chinese used to do these terracotta pots. You know, they
Yeah, they
bury
have
them
like
in the ground.
the
They,
the warriors made out of the.
yeah, they bury them in the ground and fill the terracotta pot with water, and then the roots of the plant that they planted beside that pot would be able to attach themselves to that clay and just wick water slowly, and they just fill the pot up. So in my head, I was like, okay, well, if I build the creek out of this terracotta clay, the plant roots can just grow to the side of it and to it and over it and all around it and just wick water out of it. And it would be and it would be self-sustaining, and we could put a pond beside it, and that could, you know, we could fill that with fish, and that could be where we would suck the water up out of the pond, and kind of like what I do outside in the koi pond.
Here's more of the model.
I didn't think that this was possible indoors. Okay. The only reason that you see this box right here is because I watched a video by Leighton Morrison uh, on Future Cannabis Project, and he did a soil. It's called a Horizontal Soil System by Leighton Morrison. And when I saw him do that, I tried it quite a few times in these 4x4 grassroots beds. First I tried it in a 30-gallon grassroot bag, living soil bag. But these living soil bags, they have that plastic lining around them, you know, which is great. But they also have this gap at the bottom of it, this air gap.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that troublesome when it came to the horizontal system, because the horizontal system, you're actually trying to create a reservoir at the bottom to hold water.
Yes.
You know, that gap at the bottom just releases all the water and allows air to get in there, and that air causes mold and mildew. It just causes problems.
And that's when you were telling me about this, right?
Yes. Now, this video, this is where a light bulb went off in my head, because I saw how this plant reacted to the sand silting clay that I had cleaned basically out of my driveway. So I brought out these buckets of sand silting clay from the reservoir here on my property. And what I did was, when you bring it up like that, it stinks. So it's kind of swampy, You know, it's really black, it's thick and organic matter, and it doesn't smell good. It smells like shit. It smells like a swamp. So I bring it up in buckets and I spread it out all over my asphalt driveway here, and I let it sit all summer long. And by the
Bake
end
it.
of the summer, yeah, the sun just baked it, and it turned this bright orange, like not orange, but crystal clean almost. Didn't smell. I mean, it stuck together. It held moisture. Look at
So
these roots.
that's all roots through that.
That's all. No, it matched the whole tray. And if you look at the pot, it's double potted. Look, it's in a first pot. I just broke the bottom off that starter pot, then I put it in a bigger pot to let the roots just go right on down. I never took the bottom out of. So the only thing those roots are coming out of are 4 holes in the bottom of that plastic pot.
Oh my god.
That's insane. All right, so like we
Yeah,
we
why?
all use like bottom watering systems. Most of
Mhm.
us around here, right? Like auto pots or there's a variety of ways you could do it. And there's
Yeah.
the tray to grow system where I see
Yep.
people putting just a couple 1 gallon pots in a tray together. Now I wonder if they incorporated just like silt and sand that they got from a local creek and baked on a driveway. Like, would the roots just explode that much more? They just need like a little substrate to cling on to, or what?
It's money.
That's nuts, dude.
That's all I'll say. If you can get it like this to where it's clean, that's nothing but pure organic matter in sand and silt and clay form with organic matter. But the organic matter has been broken down. You think about it, where I got that from is from a creek bed. Let me set this.
Well, you said it smelled like shit, and then that's like most of the
Yeah,
organic products I use, and it comes in bottles, and it just smells like ass. But it's got to
yeah.
have like humus in there, and all like
That's
broken
all
down
root right
life and
there.
stuff.
What
Yeah.
you're looking at, that's all root.
Oh my
It's just so
god,
airy that the roots just love it.
Yeah. And it's
that's
silty
nuts,
too.
man.
So the plant just gets super strong and it doesn't really get I didn't fertilize that at all. It's just regular, I think that's damn Fox Farm
Hmm.
out of a bag soil that I'd already run through once, I think. So it wasn't much in it. And that plant was just feeding off that sand, silt, and clay and organic matter. All I was doing was watering it. But
So
yeah,
So this is a light bulb moment for you when you
this
realize,
this was the light bulb moment. This was a huge, that right there was, I was like, okay, it's game on now. Now I have the sand in this horizontal system. You lay rocks on the bottom. So you start with a big rock, then you break it down into a smaller rock and then smaller. So basically you're creating on the bottom of your bed, you're creating a reservoir where you're going to have a stone, so to speak. So start with like a marble or whatever, a granite stone, whatever it is, some type of big fist size. And then you're going to go down all the way down to get to P. So you'll go big and then a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller, all the way down till you get to pea gravel. Once you get to the pea gravel, you want your bottom of your bed just flush with that pea gravel as you can. And then on top of the pea gravel, that was the light bulb moment. That was when I was like, I can use that sand, silt, and clay to separate the soil from getting down into my reservoir. Because that's all you're doing in those plastic beds, is that you're filling the top up, but then you have that layer that separates the soil from the water from your reservoir at the bottom.
mm-hmm,
Well, that sand, silt, and clay is the perfect barrier to stop your soil, but still allow the roots just to keep on going. The roots just keep on going, pass through that clean sand, silt, and clay, and tap into that whole other microorganisms, the whole other, it's a whole nother world. It's a dual root zone, triple root zone, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
So then when you go to add Then it's all layers from here. So it's all about layers.
I got you.
So we start with the pea gravel. In the bed, I didn't go with the big gravel because of the flooring. I just went with straight pea gravel and then a lot of sand, silt, and clay.
So this is a
And
different room, I take it, right?
no, that's the same
Oh,
room. That's
same
just
room?
the
All right,
bed I
gotcha,
was
gotcha.
working on next to it.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah,
All right. I
that
want to see
bed is
the
now my worm bed.
ah. Here's the regenerative system. Now you're
Yeah,
making the
here's where I'm starting the pond.
the channels.
Now this is the pond. That's the fish pond. That's the beginning of the fish pond. So it's sitting on about 4 to 6 inches of sand, silt, and clay right there, in organic matter. Because in a couple more videos, you'll see grass and all kinds of plants start growing up out of the sand, silt, and clay.
Freaking wild, man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this is like also, it's such a labor of love, man. I mean, really. Um, it's
So in my head, see that back pond right there, that you see that little patch of rocks that I'm standing next to right there, that was going to be a retention pond. That idea fell apart because in my head, I'm still using terracotta clay at this point. I didn't realize a lot of things at this point. So at this point in my head, I'm still going with terracotta clay. In my head, right now, I'm focusing on the fish pond and building a watertight fish pond.
gotcha.
So you
Yeah,
can
well,
just keep
go like
on
a go
rolling
like a
up
week or
until
so
you
up
get
here.
to, yeah. So that's another one, and that's me building the round. And what I use is masonry mix. So I'm using masonry mix to seal the fish pond. But that fish pond now, you got to remember, it's sitting on top of the sand, silt, and clay. So when I lay the concrete, I put rocks down, and then I pour concrete on the floor. I poured it on top of the sand, silt, and clay. So when the roots go down, they can actually go under the creek or under the pond, under the creek. They can go a lot of places. They basically roots have free range for it's 12 foot long by 9.5 foot wide. So
Holy shit.
Oh
you,
my gosh.
the roots can just go anywhere they want and tap into the creek if they want to. They can tap into the moss lining. That's what's wicking. Well, the moss isn't wicking. It's the sand, silt, and clay that's wicking. But what I had to figure out is the amount of organic matter in the sand, silt, and clay
Hmm.
is what was throwing me off. That was the biggest challenge. That's what took me. It took me seven times, and it took me a lot of brain. I mean, I was just at one time I came inside. My wife could even tell. She was just like, not good, and I was like, I just don't know. I just can't figure it the fuck out. I think it's going to be a bust at this point. And
Oh.
I've gotten this far. You know what I'm saying? This is at a point where I've not this far. I'm way ahead. I'm like day like 200. Like I'm like finished. The water's running. Everything's
And
done.
you even thought by like at day 200 that this might not work out.
No, I thought like at day 298, 297. We're getting to day 400 now. Right at day
all right, all right,
300.
all right. Here we need to go up in time
Yeah,
a little bit. Then, all right, we're gonna
yeah.
fast forward in time magically. All right, I'm gonna.
All building it was easy. Building it, I could do pretty much now. I know what I'm doing now, as far as building one. The hard part was figuring out the sand, silt, and clay. That's the trick. It's all about the right amount of organic matter in the creek versus on the side of the creek. So in nature, as water flows down a stream, the center of the creek is your cleanest part. It's the part that doesn't have any organic matter in it because it's all being washed down. You know what I mean? But as you edge up the side, you gain organic matter. This is where the wicking comes in. So it's the organic matter that's actually wicking. So we got to go along with that's
Yeah,
288. Okay,
this is
so
still like when you thought this might not work out. I just wanted to give people like a,
yes,
you know,
this is Plan B. You can see down
you're
the bottom, Plan
150
Plan
days
B.
ahead now. You've built this thing up, and you're still like, you know, in fuck around find out phase.
I am totally in fucking around to find out.
It's crazy.
I kind of still am. I'm still learning as I go, man. This is
I
my
love
first
that.
run. This is the first run, and the trick is here is water. You know, it's all about the consistency of water and getting it to the right places. How do I get it all the way up the hill, like in the soil bed? Like, how do I get it to wick from the edge of the creek and not just come over the edge and go straight down into the into the bottom of the reservoir and then end up over into my trap hole where I can now suck it up out of the ground.
All right, so
So
I think
this
we're
is
right around the point where like
yeah, you got to go back a little. Go back to
you
like
got your water in.
270, 280,
Okay.
somewhere around in there. Yeah, right. See that blue? Go back to that blue.
Yeah.
So when
This
you
is
said you were having problems with
yeah.
figuring out the level of organic matter
Yeah.
with thistles and everything, what indicators were you seeing that were showing you that it was failing? Was it just like failure to
That's where the
thrive?
yeah, that's where the moss was coming into play. So the moss
Gotcha.
on the edges of the edges were super wet. They were just
Mm.
soaking themselves. It was just too much coming over the edges. I had it packed in. And see, I thought that I could drill holes. I thought I had to drill holes in the creek because you got to remember the creek is sitting on top of all of a shit ton of clay,
Mm-hmm.
red clay, sand silting clay, all that, all kinds of shit. But anyway, I was going to drill holes in the center and let that water leak through the bottom of the creek into the soil and spread out. Okay, that was my original plan. I was going to let that water spread out after I drilled holes in the bottom of the creek there. But then as I thought about it, I kept thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, and I was like, how am I going to regulate that? Like once I put the pea gravel in, once I put the sand, silt, and clay in, once I do all that and build the creek up, how the fuck am I going to regulate like the water? Like I'm not going to be able to. So that idea went out the window, and so then I just went ahead and filled the whole thing up like I had before, because at this point I thought I was leaking water. I forgot to tell you that at the blue spot I thought I was leaking water because see that hole right there, see that
Yeah.
hole right there.
Right in front.
Yep, everything that whole box and everything slants down to that hole. So all my extra water that does get down in there, if it starts to fill up, it's going to fill up in that hole, and then I can pump it out with a shot vac or just stick a pump down in there and pump it out. You know, it's clean water, so I could just pump it right back into the fish pond. And that was my original idea. I was just going to put a pump down there. When it hit a certain level, it would pump on all that clean water that had run down through that sand, silt, and clay, and all that, all that stuff was didn't be cleaned from
Yeah,
the fish
filtered.
waste, from the fish waste that had been coming out of the fish pond. But what I quickly realized is that there's no way to regulate it, and it just wasn't going to work that way. Like there was no way I could get it clean enough, the water clean enough. So once I realized that the water wasn't coming out of that hole down there super clean and where I could pump it back into the fish pond, I was like, all right, we got to have a new plan here.
So yeah, how'd you adapt to that?
Well, that's when I came into the house and I was like, I was, my wife was like, not good. I was like, not good.
Ah,
I was like, I just don't know how the fuck that water is getting down in there somehow. Like that's what was doing. It was filling up, and I didn't know how it was filling up. I couldn't figure out how the goddamn water was getting down into my reservoir, because I was at the point where at this point I've sealed the whole fucking thing. Like I've gone over it 7 fucking times. I've sealed it with pond shield 7 times. I was like, there's no way water is going to get out of that creek. You know what I'm saying? There's no way. There's no way it's leaking. I shut it down. Okay. So I filled the pond completely full of water. And then I shut it down for 2 days. It was 2 days. And the pond didn't leak. I was like, okay. I turned the pump back on, let it flow. It fucking leaked.
Ooh.
It was leaking like a sieve. It was leaking like more than it did before. And I was like, how the hell is it still leaking? I just sealed it 7 fucking times. There's no way. There's no way it's leaking. But as you can see, that I have all this moss and this sand, silt, and clay built up around the edges. And what was happening is that I had too much sand, silt, and clay and organic matter in the creek, and it was just wicking itself right up over the creek walls, right into the bed, going straight down the wall into the bed, and not getting into the soil.
Uh,
And I was like, how can I was like, what the? I was like, I just,
Yeah, how do you fix
how
that
do I
at
fix
that
it?
point?
Yeah, how do I fix this at this? Exactly.
Well, you're already like balls deep in this
Oh,
project. I
yeah,
mean, you're
I'm
day
all,
3,
yeah,
you're almost a year into this.
yeah.
But
Yeah. So,
I
but this
mean,
was the critical point. This was the critical stage that I knew I would get to. I knew I'd get to this stage, and I knew that water would be an issue. Okay, I knew that I'd have to regulate water somehow. Somehow I've got to see. There's water down there right
yeah,
then. I'm just
yeah.
like, how the? I'm still like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, okay, the moss is super wet. It's wicking so much water that it was boggling. It was mind boggling. I was like, how is this stuff just wicking like crazy? It was
So
wicking.
is your medium just like dense as shit? You know what I mean? You like you said,
Well,
too much organic matter. You want to like cut
no,
it or something?
that wasn't the problem. The problem was it was wicking. Yeah, the edge had too much organic matter. You're exactly right. What was happening was that I didn't clean at this point. I didn't clean the creek properly. I didn't have my sand, silt, and clay in the creek wasn't filtered properly. So what I had to do was clean out the creek and then take my all the sand, silt, and clay that was in organic matter that was in that creek that I had cleaned and put it in my wheelbarrow. And here's where I had a light bulb go off. I had the light bulb go off when I realized in my mind that the center of the creek would be clean, from the constant flow. But as you would get up to the sides, that organic matter is going to increase slowly over time. It's going to increase, and that's how the edge plants are, the roots are all growing to the edge to the creek, but they're not in the water. You don't see roots like in the water. You see the roots are in that sand and silt and clay, on the edge of that creek.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they don't end up in the center of the creek or in the water. You don't ever see that. They're all buried in that sand, silt, and clay. That's where they're getting their newts from. But they're also cleaning the creek as they're feeding. They're cleaning. So what I had to figure out was how much organic matter needed to be on the edges versus in the center. And what I found out is that in my wheelbarrow, I could take a water hose and I could just go at it with the pea gravel still in there. And that was the trick. Like when I do it I'm doing it with the pea gravel, and that pea gravel is busting up a lot of that organic matter. And all that organic matter, when you shut the hose off, will float up to the top. All that and all the brown stuff, and you just keep sloshing your wheelbarrow back and forth as you spray it. All the organic matter, you'll see all the brown stuff end up at the bottom. It's kind of like gold mining.
Yeah, I was gonna say panning for gold, but
You're
in reverse.
panning the organic matter out is all you're doing. And what you're left with is sand and silt. Clean sand and silt. It's been composted, it's been cooked, it's been, the organic matter has been removed. This is what I used at the center of the creek. And then I just sprinkle that same organic matter that I'd washed out, I kept, and I go back and I sprinkle along the edges, and I kind of pack it along the edges. That's how I regulate the water flow. But I didn't just I have to now extend that all the way across the top of the soil layer. So once I get that mixture right, I come up over the creek with it and cover the whole top half of the soil all the way up to the rock. And it wicks water all the way across the top of the soil. So now I put my mulch layer on top of that sand and silt about an inch thick on top of my soil. And then I put my mulch layer on top of that. So I have a mulch layer, and then I have sand, silt, and clay, soil, sand, silt, and clay, and then my bedrock. So you have layers. You have layers.
Yeah, you're sandwiching your soil with the two
sand,
layers that wick the most effectively.
Correct. So I'm wicking from the top now, and my mulch layer is staying super moist, which is what the biology needs. So that biology in your microbes, all that good stuff that's breaking down that organic matter, they have to have that moisture.
Yeah,
it has
to stay wet.
It's got to be constant. So I was like, how, this is where the whole idea came from, was from actually Marco was growing. He's got a channel that's unbelievable. And then he has another channel called Cannabis Naturally. And I went to his channel, and after listening, he had a show called Brian and Marco on Future Cannabis Project. Brian and Marco show, and Marco had this. He's got a bed that's on a tilted slant, but it's a 4x8, so it's two 4x4s, so it's 4x8 on a slant. And he's got a bag under it, and he's got like a living water tank in another room that he pumps living water. And basically, what I mean by living water is that it's draining down through a couple of sinks, and it's running over rocks. And he's got some different clams, and it's just it's living water, basically biology in it. And then it's basically being pumped back into the top of his bed, and that's what he's watering his beds with. And that's the living water is what he's basically feeding his plants with as well, along with foliar feeding and his natural farming inputs. So that's where the idea came from. Then that's where another light bulb went off in my head. I was like, I can bring my fish indoors with this horizon. I didn't think cannabis could withstand that kind of water until I realized that, hey, they're growing aquaponically, they're growing hydroponically. I mean, the roots are sitting, but the roots are having to be fed all the time. And so that's when I was just like, well, why don't we just do the soil, keep the soil, but run the creek down the center of the bed and pump the water out of a fish pond. So that's when I started on the model, and here we are today.
All right. So let's bring us to today then. Let's bring us to your YouTube of today.
Yeah.
Wow.
A couple questions we're getting from the audience, sir. Maybe you can just let's see.
Yeah, I love questions. Some of them I can't answer.
How much water do you have to add, if ever, if any?
Good question. So I'm pumping. It's weird right now. I'm pumping about. Well, I'm not pumping; it's pumping itself. I have a dehumidifier running directly into the top half of the pond over on top of the
So you're
creek. So that's putting
taking
about.
you're stealing
I'm
moisture
still.
from
I'm
the
just taking the
atmosphere.
air, yeah, and putting it right back in. It's clean
Yep.
water. I've tested it. I test it once a month. And you know, after about probably a year or two of using the same dehu, I'll probably just buy a new one because you know they're like $130. And it is known that old dehumidifiers will contaminate your water,
Mm.
like through copper. It'll leach copper off the whatever it is you call them.
Coil.
I'm not an
Mhm.
electrician, but or
Yeah,
a
the
refrigerator
coils.
man.
Off the
Coils,
coil.
yeah, coil, yeah. So you know, I'm testing it with a water tester that you get from basically any Amazon. Just test your water for any heavy metals and stuff, and as long as it comes back clean, I'm good to go. And it's
Cool.
been coming back clean for 2 or 3 months now.
So basically, the water that gets lost from the system is the water that the plants are drinking. The plants are then like off gassing or putting that
Transpiring.
transpiring. Thank you, G3. Putting that moisture into the atmosphere through their respiration and transpiration processes, and then you're taking that and putting it right back into the water.
Right
So
back in
it's
the water.
it's kind of again another closed loop, man. it's kind of brilliant.
Yes, as long as it was clean water. Once I found
Yeah,
out, that it could be done, I was all about it. And all you gotta do is test it. If you're
that's
unsure,
cool.
test it.
So
Yeah.
we got someone says, ever thought about adding some turtles?
There's two of them in there now. You got Cooter and Scooter. That's
Scooter and
Cooter right
Scooter.
there. It looks
There
like
he
Cooter
is.
right
There's
Look at
there.
that
Cooter.
little, look at that little son of a bitch.
That's Scooter. That's Scooter.
Oh, how can you tell?
The yellow band around his edges, and he's got yellow feet. That
Oh
one's got more of a
man,
reddish feet, like more of a darker. You can see Cooter is yellow. So you can tell. You can tell yellow.
definitely Scooter.
I'm hoping it's a she. I really hope that they're a male and female. But
Yeah,
you know,
well,
I don't know. There
there's
she is.
Cooter.
There's Cooter. Yeah. See the
Oh,
yellow.
that's
You can see
cute.
the yellow. Yeah.
Mhm.
So now all right. We saw the video you adding shrimp. So
Mhm.
at this point, you've simulated nature. You've done your FAFO phase. You figured out the organic ratio, the sediment ratio to the organic material ratio. For everything's wicking, everything's kind of working like you, the god of this ecosystem, has designed it, right?
It's
And then
close.
you're trying to simulate natural processes even more by
Yeah.
adding the biology to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole. But the trick to this is it's slow and steady. It's you got to go slow. Like that's why I didn't just go adding a bunch of fish. That's why I didn't go adding a whole lot of things at once. This took time. Nothing good happens fast in
Yeah,
this
for
industry. You
sure.
know what I'm saying? So it's really about patience. Once I've got the sand and silk clean to the point where it was immediate. You know what I mean? I didn't have to worry about. I got some algae at the beginning, which I expected because the lights. I'm not going to be able to hold back the algae out of the creek because I'm blasting lights on it. 18 hours a
Yeah,
day or
they're gonna
16 hours
it's
a
gonna
day.
bloom.
It's going to bloom. But I found, that lactic acid bacteria in EM1 actually combat that really well, along with snails and the crab. Uh, you've got
So
snails,
yeah, like
crab.
I saw the snails in there, so they're constantly filtering the water.
They,
Like
yeah,
They're chewing on
they're
all
a
the
scavenger.
algae. Now that they're in the creek is clean. Like now that they're in the creek, like you could tell a huge difference, like in the bowl and at the
That's cool.
beginning of the creek. Huge difference. Yeah.
How
And
did you choose the other plants that you have cohabitating with them?
I didn't. They just showed up. That's
Did-
just what. Yeah, that's
really?
just what.
They just
That's just
showed up?
what. That's just what was
Really?
in the sand and silt and clay that I brought up from the reservoir. And I did plant some cilantro over underneath the Jolly Pond, and then I've got some dill underneath the Blue Ridge genetics. But other than that, everything is all natural. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow, I was right. Fucking wow.
So, are you getting at this point from the biology you've added to your system? Like, are you not adding nutrients, or like are you getting all your fertilizer from the waste of the fish and the snails, and like it's all being eaten by the plants, like, or are you adding anything to this?
Yeah, not yet. I seriously doubt that because I don't have enough fish. There's not enough biology or bio load in the pond to probably
Gotcha.
be, feeding the plants at this point. What the plants are probably feeding on now, which I know they're feeding on, is the soil, the big worm organics soil.
Ah,
That's the starter soil. So it's up to me now to maintain the regenerative part of this. So probably the next couple of runs I will have to add, well, I've been adding IMO3. I've added my own IMO3. So I've got the bag next to it, which I cook IMO3 and then I take and let the worms run through the IMO3, and then I take that and just top it off. As the as the soil shrinks and gets broken down, it's going to need to be added to. So we just basically feed the soil is all
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing.
You're feeding the soil. Like maybe you're
Yeah.
getting a little bit of. I'm sure you get a lot of a micro boost from the biology in the water. It's like you're constantly watering
Oh
in with
yeah.
the fish shit. Is
Yeah, and that
a
will be
product
over
we all
time.
know.
I can already see like the edges of the creek being broken down, organic matter being dropped from the edges of the moss. You can see the worms that are running through it, and all the bugs and biology are just running through underneath that moss. And see that right there, it's being
Yeah,
dropped
yeah.
down into the creek. So that's organic matter will be feeding that little plant right there, and that'll tap into the creek and it'll wick a tremendous amount of water. I might even have to move some of that because I have to maintain a consistent amount of water in certain spots. So that's where the hole comes into play. So if I come in and I see water in the bottom of the hole, I know that there's a spot in the creek somewhere that's, you know, leaking too much
Drier.
water.
Or
It's leaking too much, or it's not getting
gotcha.
enough. But it's leaking too much because I'm getting water in the hole where I'm normally not, and that's almost always going to happen because everything's being broken down and falling in and being wicked more up. I have to come through with my hand. You saw me coming through with my hand. Every time I do that, that drops the organic matter down into off the edge, and it kind of mimics nature like a storm or like a heavy flow coming through. I'm having a heavy flow, and it's blowing all that
Yeah.
organic matter
This
right
is
back
like
down into the pond.
How many gallons of water would you estimate is contained
It's
in the
a little over
system?
200, a little over
Jesus.
200 gallons. Yeah, it's not. I mean, I had a fish tank. I had a saltwater fish aquarium. It was about what was it? I don't know. It's probably been 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. I ran that. What was 100-gallon one for yeah 3 or 4 years, and that was an experience. That saltwater reef aquarium. I tried to put corals in it and tried to do reefs and try to build an aquascape in saltwater, and I had a puffer fish and it was great for about a year, and then
It's a lot of work.
it just went. It's a lot of money,
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I, yeah.
It's
I maintained fish tanks for a lot of years. It's a lot of
yeah,
work and money. Yeah,
and
it's
I
a money.
and I and I try. It was a great hobby. I love the fish. I love the atmosphere. But at the end, what pertains to this is underneath the fish tank where all the magic happens. Where in that sub tank underneath your aquarium is that's where all the magic was going on, and I didn't realize it until I started listening to a lot of these people talk about natural farming and about biology. And once biology and natural farming came into play, that's when I was like, "Oh shit, I might be able to bring my bring my koi pond and everything just right indoors. I've got the space to do it. I can't get my car, I can't get my truck in here. I mean, into the garage because it's just not big enough. So why not just turn the whole damn thing into a grow room and
Man.
you know try and build something that I had this at this point. I had this in my head that I was going to do this,
Mhm.
and I was yeah. That's the which
It's
one
the
is
evolution of a lot of different hobbies, man. Like
yeah,
combined into one. It's like
exactly,
this is
exactly.
really, really awesome. It
And
really
once I
is.
found out about the sand and silt and the creek, and then the creek, like I heard Leighton keep talking about creek, sand, silt, clay. Sand, silt, clay is soil. That's what soil is. And then I'm here on my property. That's divine pine. That shit right there is highly
Sticky.
recommended. That shit is be with you all day.
So, hold on, we got. I want to get the chat. Feel free to ask any questions you guys have too. I mean, we're seeing good questions come up. Are you planting seeds or are you transplanting? Did the cuts or seeds go into the same spots, and how do you choose that spot?
Yeah, good question. Like I said, this is the first run. So what my plan is to cut the plants right where they are, leave the soil just like it is, and then I have my starters in these little cups. I'll cut the bottom of the cup off and just set the cup right on top of the soil. This will protect, hopefully, from all the little critters somewhat until the plants get rooted down into the top of the soil. This way I don't have to disturb my soil at all. They'll just tap right into. I might push the cup down into the top layer of the mulch, but the first thing those roots will be hitting, hopefully, is that sand silt layer.
That's a tiny little, just a
That's the
little
one
cut
in
right
that's
there.
the one in the cut I put in the pond just to test it. I wanted to see if it would root, and it did.
That's funny.
Just cut it and set
Wow.
it there, and it budded. See, it's budding.
That's funny, dude.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
It
I'm
sounds like
seeing.
it sounds
Go
like a
ahead.
lot of this is about keeping your system in balance. Like how much
Yeah.
daily maintenance does that actually require? And how long could you leave the system if you needed to?
Great
We left
question.
for Christmas, and we left for 4 or 5 days, and yeah, I had somebody watching it, and then at the time there weren't any roots, and I didn't have it dialed in. I just had it turned off, so when I left. But when I came back, uh, no, I'm sorry. That was the first time I shut it down. Second time when we went on vacation for Christmas, I left it running. Somebody was here, and they had to add like 2 gallons, and there was water, somewhat down into the little uh, hole there,
Yeah, yeah.
but it wasn't bad. Like at that point, I'd kind of figured it out a little bit, but I still had too much sand, silt, and clay in there. And I
Mm.
didn't have a lot of roots in the system, so the roots are what are sucking up a lot of that water too. So
Yeah, very true.
once I get the plants in there, everything changes. You know, everything changes once the plants get to a certain height. Like so, once I cut these plants, hopefully the roots stay there long enough where I can plant right beside them. The other plants will tap in. I'll keep the best ones that are growing there and let them just tap into that natural root system and hopefully just let them keep going. And we'll just add, we'll foliar feed ferments and FAA and biology. I do liquid IMO 3, JMS, JLF, all the JDOM, KNF mix. I don't measure things very well, so I'm like a shot glass. A shot glass and a shot glass.
I feel that. That's like
So
a sign
it's
of an
super
organic
easy,
grower.
and that's what when I was growing in the 30-gallon bags. So I was doing a lot of 30-gallon bags. So when I started in 2020, that's kind of what I gravitated to because I was listening to a lot of people grow, and I was like, a couple of them had recommended the living soil bags. Don't go no less than 30 gallons, and don't go no less than 30 gallons if you're going to do living soil. And I wanted to do living soil because that's what I've always, grew up on a farm, so
Mm-hmm.
I want to get away from the chemicals. I was spraying, I think I was using Lost Coast. Yeah, I was using Lost Coast. At the time, I was getting spider mites like crazy. I was running a 4x4 tent with a four 30-gallon bags and a 40-gallon, in a
I don't
4
want
by
to.
4
I don't want to talk about spider mites.
And then I was doing just regular soil, just dumping the soil in the bags and running, normal way, trying to feed them, going hydrophobic every fucking, 2 minutes. Just not knowing what I was doing, just running the course basically. I knew in my head that that's how I learn. So I'm going to fail a
Look at
lot. I'm going to spend a little
look
bit
at
of
the fish
money,
in
and
there, dude.
yeah, those are the first fish I put in. But I was going to spend some money to learn the craft, and I knew that because I'm self-taught. I'm a truck driver by trade. I own a trucking business. That's what I do. Now been doing it for the last 18 years,
Hell yeah.
and so
Just driving the rig, listening to YouTube videos, teaching yourself how to do
YouTube,
all this different stuff, man.
it's YouTube University, bud. That's what it is.
I
I,
love that shit.
like you said, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here. It's yeah.
I think we all do.
I took a lot of people's ideas, and then I took my own and more morphed them all into this, and this is what we got so far. I plan on, I got new lights coming. Uh,
Yeah,
got
what is this? Is this like a quantum board you got here that on like the right of this frame right there? This
yeah,
green one is that a budget LED by any chance?
no, that's a Spider Farmer.
All right, gotcha.
Spider Farmer 7000.
All right,
That's old school. And then I've got one, two,
I
three,
got one that
four.
looks just like
I
it.
got four different lights. They're all different. So,
Yeah, mix and match, dude. Mix
I
and
wasn't
match.
expecting a whole a whole lot out of this run, but I needed something, because I wasn't going to run out and buy a bunch of lights and spend a ton of money
Well,
if
you
I
you
couldn't
have
get if I couldn't get it to work. You know what I
you
mean?
kind of have like a unique setup in regards to lighting. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
think
it's
you
shit.
don't have to light like the whole thing completely, but you do need to have like intense pockets of
Yes,
light, which I think you've
100%.
accomplished by having a bunch of different fixtures right on top of those little islands of soil you made, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, the Blue Ridge genetics over there's a reason why they didn't get as big as the rest of the plants. And I feel bad about that because, it makes his plants look bad, but they're not. They're really good genetics. But the reason that they didn't get that side of the bed was kind of an experiment.
Gotcha.
And somebody had to do it. So it just ended up being the Blue Ridge. But
Took one for the
I've
team.
got more of his genetics that I'm going to run. But uh, that side of the bed, I did not put any sand, silt, and clay. So that's the only spot that there is no layer of sand, silt, and clay in the top.
Will you change that for future grows?
Oh yeah,
Good.
100%, 100%. Yeah,
You,
there's a
you
big
need
difference.
so that
That sand, silt, and clay, that aquatic biology that's in that sand, that stuff is meant to stay wet. It's meant to. If it dries out, it's cool because as soon as basically the biology kind of sits up and waits for it to get wet again, and then once it gets wet again, it's living again. So if you can find a way to maintain moisture into that sand, silt, and clay, and that top layer where all that life is, where all those cannabis feeder roots are running,
Mm-hmm.
to get food.
Feeder
I mean,
roots.
that's it's on like Donkey Kong from there on.
So, bunch of people asking about genetics. I think you mentioned Blue Ridge genetics, but
And
like,
then
yeah,
there's OK Calyx. OK Calyx
what
is
are you running?
that's the Cherry Grande times Peach Pistols. That's his one of his cherry grandes, and it is a beast. It's a good, definitely. I think he does a lot of hash, a lot of he washes his plants, so it's a good
Now,
washer.
I know OK Calyx is a big, regenerative,
Yeah,
organic grower. Now, do
yeah.
you find?
I'm a big fan of his. Yeah,
I
big
bet. I
fan.
bet. Likewise, by the way,
Hmm.
likewise, a very informative grower. Learned a lot from him over the years.
Yeah, I like Kevin.
Do you find that, like, when you get gear or genetics from other organic growers, that it kind of takes to this system a little bit better
Well, I
than?
don't know yet. See, this is these are all guinea pigs.
Gotcha.
That's why I kind of felt bad about putting all these guys out there like that. You know what I mean? And I go fucking it all up,
Ah, man,
destroying their stuff. 'Cause
I don't think
I didn't
anyone's
know.
worried about you
I
destroying
didn't know.
their
I didn't know
gear.
how these plants were going to react to that moisture because it's a constant moisture. But in the soil too, the soil, you know, once you add too much moisture to the soil, it's a bad thing.
For sure.
Things go hydrophobic, or they just bad. Bad things happen.
For sure.
You get bad fungal diseases, and you'll get all kinds of nasty things if that water doesn't have a place to go. So that's where that sand, silt, and clay, and that aquatic biology that's already there and it's meant to be wet. That's where
Wow.
that comes into play, and it mixes in with that soil, and you can then keep that soil moist all the time, and there's always biology there keeping that soil from going too nasty. With the reservoir down at the bottom, all that extra water flows down into that one corner where I can then suck that extra water out if there ever is any. So you can see
Holy
where all the
shit. Yeah, look at the little moss, dude. I mean,
mosses are starting to grow back. Yeah.
it's so wild. I mean, really, like, you tried to recreate nature to the point where, like, the plant might as well think that
Yeah.
it's in nature. Like, it's surrounded by the same biology. It's got turtles hanging out. It's got fish swimming by. I mean, this is, dude. You know what this makes me think of is, like, this is the Truman Show, but for plants. Like,
Yeah, there you go. The
remember that
Truman
old
Show.
movie
Yeah,
where
yeah.
they, like,
Are you? I mean,
Jim Carrey.
are
Jim
you ever
Carrey.
able to? Are you ever able to like sit back and admire this work, or are you constantly just in there tinkering?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because today I was thinking that today, to be honest with you. I was sitting in there and
good
I was actually
question.
sitting in the seat and I was just sitting there looking at it and I was like, yeah, cool. Now I think we finally got it dialed in and I was actually starting to enjoy it because for a long time, for a while, it was a lot of pressure, put it to you that way. To go balls out and just put it all online for everybody to see and not knowing exactly what the fuck I was going to do or how it was going to play out or if the plants were going to respond shitty, and just keel over and have yellow spots all over them. And, it could
Yeah,
turn out
dude.
really
Well,
fucking bad. I mean, I got they're I get so many questions on how do you keep spider mites out? How do you keep all these other bugs? And the answer to that is diversity. It's all about diversity, and diversity, you can't get it in a 30-gallon bag. It's almost
Oh,
impossible
you got
to get
the
to get
Venus flytrap. I love it.
yeah, to get that kind of diversity to regenerate. You know what I mean? It's yeah,
What's
impossible.
this? What's the
I
smell
wouldn't
like?
be able to do it. Oh, it's clean.
Hmm.
It smells fresh, clean. Like you can smell the cannabis from 100 miles away. I mean, you can smell it. Yeah,
This
the
is
neighbor
amazing.
neighbor's
Yeah,
like
well, dude,
100
like, so you
20 yards
honestly didn't
away.
know, like, you literally fucked around and found out, like, you
Yep,
didn't know,
yep,
like, I can't imagine,
yep.
like,
Just
not
around found it out.
knowing if the plants would, like you said, look like shit. That
Yeah,
was a distinct possibility. Like, you got the ratios way wrong, but dude, like, the plants look amazing in this, and that's kind of like that's impressive in and of itself. We're all growers. We know how hard it is to grow these plants extremely
yeah.
well,
I know how hard it is.
and
I
to
couldn't do
then
it.
see
It's tough.
very happy plants in this type of system, just loving life, man. It's just this is in some inspiring shit. It really is.
That's all natural farming inputs. It's all everything that goes into the system has to be natural from right outdoors. It has to be broken down into either a liquid form or an IMO3 form. So I'm cooking basically everything in IMO3. So I'm getting everything up to temperature in the bag next to it. Everything gets excuse me up to 120 for at least
It's
4
cooter.
to 5 days, and then before it goes into the bed, before it goes into the system. So I'm not just going out and putting dirt and soil into the bed. That's not how it works. You don't want to do that. Like when you do that, you are bringing in some nasty shit if you haven't cooked your
Yeah.
IMO3 properly. So you really have to be careful. And then I have those trap plants. Everything basically is a trap plant. So all the Venus flytrap, the sundews, all these other plants are trap plants. So the bugs and pests are going to go there first, and that's where I'm going to tackle them. Like that's where I. And so far, I've been lucky. I've only had to do one liquid IMO3, and I found that a liquid IMO3, which is how I do it, I don't bubble it. That's not how I do it. I know a lot of people do, and that's probably the proper way to do it, but I'm impatient. So I'll put it in a 5-gallon bucket and I'll just stir the shit out of it. And then I'll take my water hose that I use to water the pond with. It's just rainwater. And I add water that way. And I'm add air and stirring it at the same time as I'm filling it with the rainwater with my rain wand in a 5-gallon bucket with the IMO3 in there. And then I'm immediately straining that into my little hand sprayer, little Petra hand sprayer. So I'll just immediately strain that liquid IMO3 and then just go to town on everything underneath all the plants. And that biology in 2 to 3 days, you're good. I mean, it eats up everything. And
Wow.
so it's that natural biology in the soil from outside in the woods that'll just tear up anything. Once it lands on a tiny little bug or insect, it just goes to town like a little
Wow.
fungus eating the bug from
Like you say,
inside or outside out.
keeping everything in check. It's
Keeps everything, and it's great for the plants. Like it's a biology that's coating it's kind of a shield, kind of like what I call it. It's like almost like a plant shield,
look at
a
those
biology
snails, man.
shield that goes over all your plants and just protects them. So, and then everything else will go to the trap plants, but I haven't had any issues so far. I mean, that's not to say I won't, but look at these snails up there. Look how
Those
clean the
things
bowl is.
those things reproduce like crazy.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I call them
Oh
little shit
wow,
tanks.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
everywhere. Wow,
What
you can see
size?
them.
Yeah.
What size pump is running this system?
It's actually the old. I don't know what size it is, but it's a saltwater aquarium pump. It's got 20 different levels on it. You can pump it up to 1 all the way up to 24, I think.
Mhm.
It's got a wave.
Wow.
It's got a wave action, so it'll sit there and pump. Wave action on it. I can't remember the size of it exactly. I don't want to tell you wrong, but it's rated for up to 500-gallon uh, uh, pump. Up to
Wow.
I think for a 500-gallon fish tank. I mean, maybe it's 300, but
Are you filtering the water at all, or are you just letting the
that's
system
the
take
creek.
care of?
The creek. Yeah.
Nice.
That's what the creek is for.
It's so
So
cool, man. When you harvest, what do you do? Like, are you gonna keep the system on? It
oh yeah,
stays
yeah.
alive. You
Everything
just
stays around.
put
Yeah.
new plants right into it, or
Yep. Put plants right back into it. I hope to never. My plan is hopefully never have to shut the pump off again. I got an extra pump. Even I bought an extra pump, so if that
Yeah,
one
that's
quit,
something you want to keep handy. It's
yeah,
just
you
a
gotta have
regular,
that.
submersible pump, right?
I I learned that a long time ago to have an extra pump. Yeah, it's just a regular submersible pump. Yep, pumping water right on up to the creek, and yep, it's as long as that's flowing. I don't plan on ever shutting it down. So if the water stops flowing, that's when bad things happen. Things start to set. Things start to go. Bad things start to grow. So as long as things are flowing, everything should be good. That's why I like to run my hand down the center of the creek and just mimic like a bird running through, scratching, looking for shit, like a hern would, like a bird, like a big hern would, he comes through
yeah,
walking.
yeah,
That's what I have in my head, like this whole project in my head, like my cannabis plants were gonna be my big giant redwoods hanging over my creek, and kind of like have in my head I had a natural forest mountain running down, and I tried to mimic that the best I could. But how do I do that and regulate water all at the same time? That was the problem. But we figured
So,
it out with the sand, silt, and clay. That's where
yeah,
that
yeah.
comes into play.
so
And
where
the
do
moss. And the moss is a great antibacterial thing to have in your system, especially on top, because it keeps
Moss.
moss. I didn't know this until recently, but it doesn't actually have roots. It produces spores,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it reproduces itself. But what it also does is it kind of holds all that sand, silt, and clay on top of that creek, and then it allows uh, all that moisture to be wicked up into that underneath that, but it holds it there long enough for it to be wicked. So, if in other words, if that moss wasn't there, the sand, silt, and clay and the organic matter would just fall right back down into the creek or fall into the soil, and it wouldn't be stable. And moss needs something stable to grow on. So the edge of the creek was the perfect spot for the moss. And the moss is a great indicator of how much moisture is being wicked, because you can actually put your hand on it and feel it. So if it's super wet, it's being wicked too much. If it's not wet enough, then it's not wicking enough. All I got to do is add some organic matter to right to that spot. And in a day, it'll be wet.
Huh.
And it'll
That's
just
crazy,
and
man.
it'll just wick itself right on back up.
So this system's like incredible. I mean, I've seen state of the art systems, like multi-million dollar setups, right? But this is the most impressive thing I've ever seen. It's awesome.
Appreciate that.
Where do you go from here? Are you gonna just kind of
Oh,
maintain it, maybe little tweaks, or do you have plans on doing other shit to it?
yeah, it's not even close, man.
I had a
Yeah,
feeling.
it's not
He's a
even
mad
close.
scientist.
Like the next one I build, there's going to be another one. Like me and my wife plan on building a house down here, and I'm gonna have a room dedicated in our new house to one of these, and there's a lot. Like I learned a lot. This was a fun project, but there's a lot of things I would do differently and use differently. And
Well, I mean, obviously, there's probably a ton of things you could do differently, but if you could pick
yeah, of course,
one
as you
major,
grow, yeah,
what's the one
Dude,
major thing that you would do differently?
a shelf in the creek,
Okay.
100%, 100%. Like right now, the creek just goes like a U. It's just a U right now, and then it lips over. But if I were to, let's say, let me see if I can get the camera right here. If I was to
hmm,
come across over the lip and then go down and then lip over and then go down and have a shelf there,
yeah.
and then that shelf would allow me to have that flowing creek system a lot faster without eroding down into the center of the creek, because I'd have that shelf to plant plants on, and it would hold rock, and I could put big rocks on top of little rock, or little rocks on top of big rocks, and have an actual place to pile sand and silt up in. And yeah, it would be a lot of different things like that. That's the one main thing I would do. That would help me regulate the moisture a lot better.
Hmm.
And instead of having, because right now I'm having a problem with it all falling down back into the center of the creek. It just wants to, go down into the center, of course, because it's gravity, and that's what it does. So that's what I'm doing now, is trying to basically put bigger rocks. You're going to start to see a little bit bigger agates and bigger rocks around the edges,
Hmm.
holding up some of that organic matter from falling down into the creek center. Because there are certain spots in the creek that are fast, so you need a spot that as soon as it comes in and comes down, it's speeding up, so it's like a little rapid that runs down through the first little stage, and then it gets to that rock down into the center, and that's where it kind of swirls around. That's where I want it to swirl around. It kind of slows everything up, and then it comes around, and then it'll speed back up again as it enters the pond, and that's on purpose. That's the in those little pockets are where I'm going to get that algae build. That's where I'm going to get that biology. It's not stagnant, but it's it's stationary, so to speak. It's still
Gotcha.
moving through, but it's not moving through fast enough to, like, not let things grow. So,
This is like, man, you should charge admission for this. Honestly, like growers would like pay to come see this. Like, there's like a model train exhibit
yeah,
near
I've
my
really like
house,
it.
where it's like
I've heard
a
multiple people have told me, dude, train,
yeah, it's you go in and
train.
you're like
Yeah,
amazed at this like huge setup of a model train, and like
yeah,
this guy and his buddies like built over tens of decades, right?
yeah.
Just reminds me of that. Like, and at the same time, I'm thinking that we have someone in the chat ask a question like, if you move, would you have to break this all down, or is
No,
it
it
just like the
ain't.
train set that kind of comes with the place that you buy?
Well,
You know what I
I
mean?
said I'm building the house, but I own it's basically a double lot here, so I own the top and the bottom. So I own this top house and this garage, and then I also own the bottom half as well, where I'm getting ready to build a house.
Gotcha.
So
So
I'll
you
own the
ain't
whole
leaving.
thing. And then, no, this is my home
You
forever.
ain't
This is
leaving.
my retire. This is my retirement project.
I
Yeah.
love it, man. I
Wow.
love that you have plans to build another, and you already know what you would change, and like,
Yeah,
yeah, dude.
yeah. When I was building this in my head the whole time, I'm like, okay, that's something I would definitely do different next time. That's something I would definitely like. That's how my mind works. So,
Well,
Yeah.
like you said
Constantly
earlier,
improving.
have you stopped, to enjoy it, and I was like, today I kind of stopped to, admire it a little bit, and then I was like, all right, I'm back to
well,
what can I do
it's
now? Yeah,
you got to have a
but
day 7, right? Like where you just rest and admire
yeah,
your
yeah,
creation.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's
definitely.
like
Yeah,
just
day of rest for sure.
just like, I mean, this is again like, stop me in my tracks like scrolling through. Like you don't see this every day, man. And then to hear that you are a truck driver, you know, you're a hobbyist, home grower, like a lot of us around here, like self-taught.
Yep.
You learned all these methods through all these different people you found in the community, and you kind of put the puzzle pieces together on your own to do something that's 100% fucking unique.
Yeah,
And that,
appreciate
like,
that.
that's like again, my hat off to you. This is incredible. I mean, I would love, man. I don't, again, like I think you're gonna have like inputs that we can't even fathom going into your plants here. Like, who knows if turtle poop like increases a certain terpene? Like, have the studies been done? Like maybe beta caryophyllene increases 300% with the presence of turtle poop in the water. Like, we just don't
You
know,
don't know. Yeah, that's the cool thing
right?
about that's the thing about this whole project. Like, there's not a whole lot of people I can listen to or talk to or because I nobody's done. I don't know anybody who's done one like this that's set up like this. I see a lot of ones in a greenhouse where they're connected to the ground. Where the fish pond is in the ground, and they do an aquaponics type system. Where they do a flood and drain system. So aquaponics, they'll just basically do a pond and fill the pond full of fish or a barrel or whatever they're using. A lot of times they're these big plastic barrels that they'll put these fish in, and they'll run a flood and drain system. So they'll just build a table that they'll put the plants in, and then they'll fill that table full of that pond water and fill the bottom of that table up however many times it is a day, and that's how the flood and drain aquaponics system basically works. And well, that's I've done that with the fish pond out here. I kind of did the same thing. I was pumping water out into a bucket, and letting it fill the bottom of the bucket up, and it was doing the same principle, but it didn't work very well for me. But it gave me the idea. Like, I was like, once the sand and silt came into play, and then I saw then the horizontal system, and then the natural farming, and then the jadam, and then all of this came together, and it was just like, you know what, you can do this indoors. You need good lights. You need a way to monitor your system. You need a good environment, and you can grow naturally indoors. It just has to be done and set up the right way, and it has to be done with patience. Like, it cannot be rushed. Like, some things just take time. It is what it is.
Yeah, dude.
you
Well,
know,
so I wanted to ask you too, real quick, about like environmental controls. You got
yeah.
a dehu, you got a humidifier. I mean, you got
Mini split,
everything: air conditioner, heater. Like,
I saw
what's
the
going
split.
on?
yeah, I saw the mini split in the corner there.
Word.
Yep. You got mini split, dehu. That basically, see those little black bug. You see that little black bug right there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they were everywhere. They were everywhere. I was like, oh shit. And that's when I broke out the liquid IMO3, and in 2 days they were gone.
Do you know what they were? Any chance? Or
Some type of little like wood beetle, like little
you think
flying
they
wood
just
beetle
like
type thing. They just popped up.
sprouted from the organic
Yeah,
matter you had brought in?
yep. Temperature got just right. Something, they just hit a bloom and took
Dude, do
off.
you think if you had this thing for 17 years, do you think you would see a cicada?
I don't know. That'd be
Like,
cool.
what do they call them? Like the swarm. Like, we got like swarm 16B
Oh,
I
the
over
could leave
here.
the door.
broods.
I could leave the
Yeah,
door open.
brood.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
leave the door open.
The brood coming from your tent and your tent only.
Yeah, that would be cool. We get them around here too. I mean, we had a mess of them just not too long, just last year, I think it was, maybe the year before we had them. It's every like 7 years or something.
Oh man.
They come popping out. It wasn't too
Yeah,
long
well,
ago.
don't be surprised, man. Don't be surprised if you hear that little well, not little, it's a loud chirp,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. One just come popping out. Yeah, about 7 years or.
Yeah, 7 or 17. I'm not even
Like
sure, man. But
13. Well, there's two types. There's two types of cicadas. One I think comes out every 7 years, and one maybe like 13 years.
yeah. Well,
And
I'm curious, man. I'll be following you to
well,
see
that would be
answer
cool.
that question.
That would be
Um,
quite interesting. But I do have more fish going in. So like we just had our first 70-degree day today here in Virginia. So it was pretty nice out here. And probably another couple of weeks, my pond outside will get warmer. I'll turn the pump back on. We'll start feeding those fish. And I've got two that picked out that I'm gonna bring into the fish pond. So they're decent sized goldfish that got cool markings.
nice.
Uh,
Hand selected to be
yeah, and they're
brought
just the right
inside.
size too. So I'll probably have to change them in and out because some of these get too big. In the right environment, they'll go crazy and
Yeah.
get really big. And I don't want anything too big in the fish pond because I got turtles in there, I got shrimp in there, I got there's only so much room I want to pack in there as far as bio load goes.
Yeah, and
And
goldfish are filthy fucking fish.
goldfish are you nailed it. But they do produce a good turd. They do produce a lot of waste, and I do need that kind of waste in that creek system because I'm going to have a lot of biology in that creek system eating it. So I need a lot of it to be try and get uptake, and wicked up into the soil beds where those roots from the cannabis plants are getting to the edges of that moss and tapping into that sand and silt.
I've always wondered about like the
And,
higher nitrates that are in fish shit, whether or not they would fuck up the plants. Apparently
well,
not.
that's where that lactic acid bacteria and that EM1 activated EM1 and lactic acid bacteria. Either one. I've been using my own lactic acid bacteria that I make, and it does the job. I mean, a shot glass of it right into the creek. You'll see it bubble up, and it'll just flow itself on down through the creek. And a day later, it's like the algae went not from stringy to non-stringy, and then it went from like what you see there, that dark
Yeah, the
green
green.
attack. Yeah. Well, now it's not even that, it's a darker green because I've done it like 3 times now. So I'm doing it a shot glass once every maybe 3 weeks or so just to see the reaction of the pond water, and it's been amazing. Like the colors of everything have brightened up. The algae came little specks in which the snails then can come in and just clean up real easily. All that extra algae gets flown down into the pond where the fish eat it and the crab eats it. Oh, I saw the crab today. I meant to mention that.
You got crabs too. All
There's a
right. All
red
right.
claw crab, and then there's also 4 micro Thai micro crabs that I put in the creek.
Man.
And I saw the red claw when I put him in. He was my thumb size, and now he's about double my thumb size. And he's got a big old red claw on him. And I picked up a piece of wood. That's what I was doing. I was the turtle had gotten wedged himself into on a rock and a piece of wood, and I removed that rock. Like tomorrow, I think I'll show that on tomorrow's video. Actually, that's going to be me removing that rock is a big deal because the turtle had gotten himself wedged in between the wood and the rock, and he was just sitting there doing this. And
Oh,
he couldn't move, and they'll drown. Turtles got to have
Yeah,
air,
yeah,
so
yeah.
so I was,
Oh
oh
no.
shit, I was like, I
Save
pulled the
to
rock
save
off.
Scooter. Got to
Yeah,
save
I
Scooter.
pulled the rock up and he took off, and I was like, oh shit. Like, well, and the only reason that rock was there was to hold down that wood until it got saturated enough to where it would stay underneath the water by itself. So I removed the rock and the wood stayed there, and Scooter was saved.
Good.
whew.
Thank God. Yeah, I know, right? It's well.
And the funny thing, well, not funny, but somebody had mentioned that on my Instagram. Somebody had told me like a week ago. Somebody had said, having all that wood in there, make sure, as the turtle grows, their shells can get wedged in between things and they can drown. And I was like, yeah, thumbs up. Good looking out, man. And sure as shit, I walk in there and the damn, he's sitting there doing this, I'm like, oh shit. I
Oh my
picked up the
gosh.
rock and he took off. I was like, okay. Yeah, we got to
Oh,
rearrange some things. Well, thankfully we got away with it, and no turtle was harmed. And we rearranged some things to where I think they can't get. Of course, it's a turtle,
yeah, good.
but I can
Good.
only do my best by setting up the aquascape to where there's no, reduce the risk. I say
Yeah,
of him
make it
getting wedged
Yeah.
into places.
turtle proof it.
But I'm in there every day, so I'm eyeballing it quite a bit.
Yeah, dude. Well, I would love to see. I'd love to see you try to do an auto flower or two
I've
in
got
this
some
setup.
coming. I've got some.
Yeah.
Got some growing right now. Fast Buds had me on their show about a month ago, and they gifted me some. And I've never grown autoflower before.
Yeah.
Never
Oh
seen,
well.
never seen one. So don't
Well, you can
never.
skip the fast buds. We'll link you up with a couple breeders that
Yeah, well, like I've told a couple of
have
people.
plants that would be much better for your system.
I've told quite a few people, because there's thousands of breeders, out
Yeah,
here,
yeah. It's
and I'm a home
teach their
grower,
own.
and if you gift me your seeds, I'll promise that I would run them regardless. If they turn out like shit, not my fault.
That's right. Then your seeds
But
just
just be
weren't cut
warned.
out for the.
Just be warned. When I tell I've told people that when you gift me your seeds, just be warned that this is a new system. And I'm not the best grower in the world, and I know how to fix problems. All right, I'm good at fixing problems. So if there's a problem, I can probably fix it. But you're going to be exposed. I post every day, so your genetics are going to be
Yeah.
on,
Uh,
every day, and your genetics will be, on full display. And I'll
hey,
do my,
I
I'll do
know.
my best. I'll do my
We
best to make them happen. But like I said, whoever's genetics I run, I'm going to do my best to run, make them proud, make myself proud.
There you go. We got an
And
Happy.
outcast saying he's going to take
yeah,
care of you, man. We're going to see a big old sacred watch or um, what's
but
his new one? Like
Oh, look at the
there are big
pineapple
changes
stomper.
coming.
yeah,
Uh,
the
uh, uh,
cookie.
yeah.
See a big old outcast auto at the edge of that beautiful tent or beautiful creek bed there.
Well, I've got big changes coming because I've got lights coming from Grandmaster LEDs, and we're
Nice.
gonna be
Good
working
choice there.
with them
Cool.
for a little bit. And that pulse meter I got hanging up there, I'm gonna go on and help them out a little bit, so they're
Awesome,
gonna
dude.
be doing that. But I'm only trying to I'm going to sponsor these people, but I'm only trying to sponsor things that are like based on what you need to have for an indoor grow. So an indoor grow lights is
Oh yeah,
number one, in my book. And number
it's
two
the
is a
engine.
way to regulate and monitor your environment. That's very important. You need to know, what your environment's doing. And once
True.
that's set up and going good, we're going to probably expand that a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out a way that I can go up with a little bit more mountain with the rock. So we're going to have actually more of a mountain ridge there on the back half of that. So I'm just going to build the rock up and make it more. It's not going to be anything functional or anything. It's just going to be more aesthetic, something pretty to look at. And then we're going to use that to run ivy up it and have different plants running around it. So we've got the Monstero in there. So the idea, eventually, the whole place will be a big plant. It'll just be looking like a rainforest going on in there.
Oh my
Absolutely, yeah.
gosh.
It'll all be linked into the pond. So everything will link back to the water source, which is the pond. So
This
if we
kind of
have to,
sounds like an amusement park to me.
we might have to add an extra retention pond to that. So that off to the side, there might be a retention. We might add a creek system that comes off that
Yeah,
side
and
of.
then you'll build on that, and that'll be its own
Yeah,
little thing. And
Listen, man, you
then you'll
put
need a
get a food truck,
yeah.
get a cover band playing like early 2000s pop rock songs. You just sing along
Yeah,
tunes. You can have like it's a little like winery style. Like just come visit the grow.
yeah.
You can
Well, I wanted to
chill.
ask, who did the skunk? Who did the skunk? Yeah.
I
Well, that was
did.
G3, the
Yeah,
artwork.
I like that. And
I'm
that's
glad.
one thing.
Good.
That's one thing that I'm going to be doing here, and I can announce it right now. Actually, I'll do it on your show. Is that I'm going to be looking for. That's what I'm looking for right now. Is a skunk, basically a mascot.
well.
You know,
She used AI for that one.
Yep,
We
I
could
used AI.
yeah,
we could
yeah.
get you
You
set
could,
up for that
yeah.
with that. Yeah,
Well, the
it's
AI,
doing so.
I'm not particularly going with the AI version of my mascot. I'm looking for something that original, but the AI is. I like it hand drawn. Do you do anything hand drawn like an
No,
artist or? Yeah, that's what
Mm-mm.
I'm looking for. So
Oh
that's the kind
gosh.
of
So what you're
contest I'm
saying
going.
for artists to hit you up on IG? That's a slippery slope, my friend.
I'm going to
Oh,
get people to
RIP to
send
your
me
inbox.
pictures. Yeah, I'm gonna get people to send me pictures and hopefully get different ideas and different designs on a mascot for the skunk. Yeah, but
we could actually put you in touch with somebody that does some pretty good work.
Mhm.
well,
Paint
I'm gonna put it
chirping.
out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it out there on
Well,
my IG, and there's
Oh,
I'm
you'll
sure
get
there's
tons.
quite a few
you're
artists on
yeah, you'll
there.
find them. You'll find them. They'll
you're
come
gonna
out of
get
the
it.
woodwork, brother.
Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah,
get inundated with them. But yeah, that's gonna be cool. I really can't wait to see what you do with this and where it goes, and I'll be following along closely. It's fucking wild, man. My hat's
appreciate
off to you as
it.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
As
same.
as somebody who like I really love fish tanks. I for years I've maintained them. Not recently over the last 6 or 7 years. I kind of got out of it, but um,
yeah, same here.
it's pretty cool to see you mix the two hobbies together, right? But do it in a way that is like art, really. It's wild. It's more
Yeah,
than just functional. You know,
Longwood
yeah.
Gardens eat your heart out.
That's
That
what I
was the
was
plan. I
thinking
didn't
too,
want to build
G3.
something that wasn't functional. I needed to build something that was actually going to function and serve a purpose other than just have some fish swimming
yeah,
around in it. And
yeah,
having a creek, the creek's cool and all, and it would be cool. But if I still gotta water the plants all day, every day, in that large of a spot for what I was trying to do, I was trying to be able to go away. I wanted to be able to go somewhere for 4 or 5 days and not have to worry about it other than, having somebody check on
100%.
it. You know what I mean? I don't want to have nobody watering my plants because that's like the biggest no-no in the world for somebody else to come into your grow unless they know what they're doing, but
Totally, man.
yeah,
Well,
that was the idea. If as long as it's functional, once I learned that sand, silt, and clay and that organic matter mix was the key, and then but I did that test. I did that test on the roots before I even did any of this. Before it even came to my mind, like that light bulb came off, and when I planted that plant on top of that sand, silt, and clay, and it just matted the tray, and I was like, okay, here we go. They were the prettiest, whitest roots you'd ever seen. I was like, yeah. I didn't feed
that's
this
the key.
plant. I didn't do
That's
nothing.
the
All I
key.
did,
Huh?
all I did was put rainwater on. That was it. And I was like,
Wow.
It's
all
it's
right,
nuts,
we're
dude.
on.
Oh.
So then we could build off
Um.
that. So once we started building off that, then everything just took off, and yeah, here we are.
Amazing.
Here we
Right.
are.
Speaking of where you are, please tell everyone where they can find you.
I'm at Yellow Skunk Farms on Instagram, and same on YouTube. Yellow Skunk Farms.
Beautiful.
Hell
That's
yeah,
the
dude.
only spots I'm at right now. That's all I can handle. I don't do too much
Until you open up
technology.
your you got to sell
Yeah,
tickets to this place, like an exhibit, man. I'm telling you, food trucks, little.
my wife has plans.
I would pay money. I would pay
She's a
money to
smart
come
woman.
chill for an afternoon,
My wife has
and
a yoga
just
studio.
hang out.
That's what she does. We own a yoga studio as well here in Providence Forge, Virginia, called Homegrown Yoga. And
Oh, I
Love
love
it.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
so
There you go. Yeah, you go.
that's
Like do
kind of
yoga studio, like in with the grow, like
mhm.
in this like tranquil, kind of nature sim with Cooter and Scooter there,
There you go.
and play like some
Yeah,
binaural
Cooter
beats
and
or
Scooter are gonna
whatever.
need their own
Just
T-shirts, and they're gonna need their hats. They're gonna need all that stuff. They're gonna
yeah,
need their
dude.
Oh,
merch.
yes. I'm
You
emotionally
know.
They're
invested in
they're
these
blowing
turtles
up.
now.
Yeah, the turtles are gonna blow up.
Yeah, they
Lean
get
into the
big.
turtles,
Actually, you
dude.
talk about blowing up. Yeah, they will blow up. Those things, those sliders, they can get like 12 inches, 13 inches.
Yeah, and they love to
Whoa.
eat flowers.
They fucking eat. They like to eat flower, but hopefully, when they get to a certain point, I'm gonna have to figure out how to keep them out of tearing up everything and digging holes in the
Yeah,
soil.
they'll
They'll
just
probably
tear
be,
everything down.
they'll tear up shit. So
Yeah.
I'll just make it almost impossible for them to get into the soil, you know, unless they have to really break into something to get
Yeah,
in there.
keeping the plants lollipopped is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I don't
Hopefully,
think I'll
hopefully,
probably have the turtles like running around in the soil beds with the plants,
yeah,
because they are known to tear. They got big claws and they scratch, and they will scratch the side of the plant. I've seen that. I've seen them. They do eat plants, so that's what they do.
mhm.
Especially at that size, like they'll grow out. Right now, they're eating a lot of worms and bloodworm and
I think you need just
stuff
off my.
like
I
that.
don't know why I didn't think of it before. I think you need a frog or two in there now.
Yeah. Well, I've got a toad out here in the fish pond
Yeah,
outdoors.
catch
Huge.
them, bring them on in.
He's a huge toad. And I don't know how they work in there, but frogs,
Nope.
I found what was I going to say? Oh yeah, that little I had a little green tree frog. That's what it
Yeah,
was.
those are
Couldn't
cool.
think about it.
Nice.
That's what
Well,
I was going to bring in. I want to find me a little couple tree frogs and bring some tree
you
frogs
know,
in. Yeah, so it's going to be
it's
crazy, and then eventually, like this thing's all new. That's why I keep telling everybody. It's like everything's new. Like the walls are
yep.
still white. Like eventually, the walls will not be white. I don't like white walls. Like the walls are going to have vines and fucking flowers and all kinds of shit. I got
Holy
pots
shit,
that I
man.
got on wheels. I'll just wheel the pots around, and attach them to different things. And if I need to prune them, I'll prune them and manage it the way I need to
Yeah,
manage it. But
you're going
everything will
full.
be on wheels that I can wheel around. So that's one thing good about those 30-gallon living soil bags. You can put them on wheels, and they're great for house plants. You know, if you're going to do something repetitive like cannabis in them, you need to keep topping them off and keep feeding them, and hopefully eventually I won't have to do that with this whole system here. Hopefully everything will just eventually I'll get enough root mass in the soil to just really give it all the biology, all the food it ever needs to just keep going. And that root mass will be there as soon as I tap in the next one, and it'll just keep this constant root mass.
Oh,
This is what I'm
Amazing.
going
yeah,
for.
dude.
It's just constant roots in
Water
the creek.
regeneration.
Yeah.
He's a man with a vision. This is
Yeah. I've
really.
got plans. Like my wife said, you need to,
You
like you
gotta
said
follow
earlier, like, take
along.
your time to enjoy it. And I was like, I
Have
have
a
no
pop,
time.
smoke a
No time.
bone. You
No
know?
time. Yeah, well, I do that. I smoke plenty of weed. Yeah,
think
yeah.
to
I got
conceive
some.
of something like this,
Yeah,
I feel like you kind of have to, man.
yeah.
This is again.
I like mushrooms too. I like the mushrooms.
There you go.
Hell
Now you
yeah,
speaking
Ooh.
my language.
hell yeah.
When I was younger, man, I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in a while. I had to quit drinking, but I did drink, and I've had my share, and I've done everything under the sun except for heroin and crack. Stay away from all that shit.
Right.
But back when I was younger, yeah, we
Everything else is
did some
fair
stupid
game.
shit.
Yeah,
And
mushrooms and
the acid,
cannabis is all you need.
that's all I need now. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man.
You know, the acid trips back in the day worked. You know, put me on a nice level plane. The ADD and the ADHD and all that good stuff. I had all that. I didn't do very well in school. You know, I couldn't sit still long enough to do
Yeah.
well in school. So I can
Sound
focus. You know, when I put my mind to it, and I'm a good problem solver. I'm really good at solving problems when the problem occurs. So there has to
Mhm.
be a problem in order for me to be able to solve it. So
that's right.
that's why I had to just get into it and start building it. And as the problems occur, then we solve the problem. There's just a few spots there that, you know, the problems get to the point where it's like, is it possible? it,
Well, I think
it
Wow.
usually is. It almost always is possible. I would say it's
yeah, I think you've
always
shown
possible.
with creative thinking
If you
and
can,
like
yeah, if you can think it, you can make
ingenuity,
it happen
man.
for sure.
You know, like so much is possible in this art that we all partake in. I think you've just opened up a lot of people's eyes on like what is possible in this hobby of ours, really, and like what you all these different skills and disciplines combined into one thing is just like, man, you're like a kung fu master. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
hope
you,
so. I hope that's because I was inspired by Marco and Leighton and Brian from Rubber Ducky. I was inspired by a lot of people, but you know, those were three main ones. You know, Brian for the inspiration, and Marco for the inspiration. Leighton, all those guys. You know, I haven't met Leighton, but I will be going on his show. Actually, I've been invited on his show too next month.
hell yeah.
But yeah, I've been fortunate enough to meet Marco here in Virginia. He lives here in Virginia, so I've got to meet him. Got to talk with Brian, so I've got to talk. And IG has been really good to me in being able to connect with these people. You know, so being able to connect with those minds whenever I want to, and being able to tap into that and seeing what they're doing, and being able to be like, oh shit, okay, so this does that. Okay, so that's the same as this. So it should work. Now let's go try. And I go try. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if it works, it works. If it don't, it don't. I found in natural farming, it doesn't really matter. You don't really, you know, a lot of people want a recipe. You know, they want it written down, boom, 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 boom. And that's cool. And I can appreciate that, but that's not me. Like
I ain't got no
I'm a,
recipe.
I'm not a recipe, but I will say I was a moron for a long time. And what I mean by that is I was a more on. Like I put more on everything. Like I was just, oh yeah, more is better. You know what I mean? More,
I
more,
do.
more,
I do.
more crab meal, more kelp meal, more fucking blood meal, more. You know, everything was, you know, more. It turned into a moron, and I was just like,
I
that's that. And
I
organics
think
like
is
that.
not the way. That's not the way.
I think a lot of new growers fall into that trap. It's pretty
Yeah,
easy.
yeah, yeah. They did, and I was one of them. Like I, fuck.
It's
I mean, I went hydrophobic so many damn times in a 30-gallon bag just overload, biology overload, and not doing proper watering and not doing. I mean, it was a nightmare for me because I wanted it to be simple.
Mhm.
And it should have been simple. Growing up, growing tomato plants, growing all this stuff was simple. You know, it wasn't expensive. It was just easy. And then here comes this cannabis plant, and I'm like, what the fuck? Oh, you fucking, what the fuck? This ain't easy. This is
Eh,
hard, I mean, but it should be easy. To
it's
get good cannabis, to grow cannabis is pretty easy, but to grow good quality
it's
cannabis, like,
tough.
and
That's the
see it
tough part.
all the way through the dry and the cure, all the way to your bong hit is hard.
That's the tough part.
And
One mistake in the process, and you've
all
essentially
that work
ruined.
is
You know what I
right
mean?
down the tube. And believe
But
me, a lot of my shit has gone into the compost pile. It just has, because I wouldn't let any of my best friends smoke it. That's the trial and error that I had to go through. It cost money, to go to college, and YouTube University costs money, through trial and error. But
truth.
once you dial it in, once you figure out how you want to grow, that's first off. I have a lot of resources here. I have, a lot of property around me that I can draw from. A lot of people don't have that. So a grow store is great. But going to a grow store can get like going to a freaking cereal aisle at the grocery store. Everything will keep you alive, but not all of it's very good for you. And most of that stuff is crap for your plant. When you put it on, you're going to see a boom, and all that boom is most of the time feeding the biology in your pot, and then that biology is turning over that sugar and releasing nutrients back to your plant, and then it goes away. And then you got to add more, and that's how the cycle goes. You just got to keep feeding it, feeding it, feeding it. I wanted a way to be able to try and feed it with the water system and try and tap everything into that soil system. I wanted the soil, but I also wanted the water as well. So I wanted hydroponics, I wanted aquaponics, and I also wanted natural farming. I wanted it all in one, and this is what we came up with. But it was natural farming in the Jadam and all that aspects that could bring it all together at one time in one system indoors. Like outdoors, I think I could do it pretty easily. It's pretty simple outdoors because you're dealing with nature. And I've already had a
Yeah.
koi pond out here for years. I think you could easily do a creek system
Yeah, indoors you
outdoors,
gotta.
Yeah. Yeah.
but indoors is a totally different system.
You're in
Indoors.
you're in control of every variable. It's
Yeah,
you
and
got to figure it out. But
another thing that people miss with the 4x4 beds and doing a living soil system, I found, is that air gap at the bottom of that living soil system. Is if you water too much, it's going to be a problem. You're gonna get algae build up down there in that bottom half of that. And once those roots get down there, it's usually a problem, and you end up having to dig it all back out and redoing it. It's hard to get a bed like that to regenerate over 5 or 6 years. You know, I know a lot of people who do it, who do the 4x4s and have got them going for 7, 10, plus years, but they're adding a lot of compost. They're doing a lot of amendments. They're constantly, building on that soil. They're constantly growing in that bag. It's a constant hassle with water. Like the water has to be, consistent. So it's usually a drip system going in this. It's just once I got into seeing how all the pros, did this and got really good cannabis, it turned into the same thing I was doing before. It was just like I got to buy this, I got to buy this. I got to go buy a drip system. I've got to have a
I
canister for my
I know how
water.
that feels.
I've got to buy this again and then this and that. It's not simple anymore. So, like I said, what I built was in my head going to be, once it was done, the simplest way to grow cannabis. Just let it do itself. Let nature take its course and don't fuck with it at all. Just foliar feed. Let the water do its job. Let the everything that I've set up now work and do its job. All I got to do is sit back and make sure that the pond is topped off. There's plenty of food for the fish, and as long as that's going, and I'm just there to steward everything now. I'm just there to run my fingers through the pond or through the creek to mimic the bird running through. Or, I'm just there to like be the little mouse. I had a mouse problem. I got rid of the mouse, but the mouse are actually pretty decent to have as long as you're not pissing and shitting all in your soil.
Mm.
But they're decent for little, scratching. They like to. They're like almost like a mini chicken running around scratching everything, digging little holes here. They're moving things around.
Yeah.
They're doing their job that nature put them to do, but their piss can mess up things, and the babies can get out of hand, and they get
Yeah.
next thing you know, you've got 10,000 mice running around. It's
Ugh.
And it's
not
in
good.
the
Then you've
house
got
Not-
too. We don't want
snakes
that.
running around the house because the snakes are eating the mice.
And then you got the cicadas that pop up every 7 and
Then you
13
got to piss off
years, and it's
life.
just,
They got there's a
man.
snake over here, there's a snake over there, and
Oh, well,
don't like snakes. So
um,
everything comes together eventually, but like I said, I was just focused more on letting nature do its thing. Once I figured out that natural farming, and there was actually people doing natural farming, indoors and doing it successfully, like Marco in the Cannabis Naturally on his Instagram over there. I highly recommend checking out Marco is Growing. He has a great page for natural farmers. Everything that I put into this soil system or in the soil is coming from this property, or it's coming from somebody else's property that I know that they did an IMO 3 from their land. So I'm
cool.
doing like some OK Calix. He's in Oklahoma. You know, I've got some of his IMO that he's got from his backyard and his patch of woods. So then I've just brought his IMO in and I've mixed it with my IMO. So I'm diversifying as much IMO as I can from as many different people. As long as the way I see it, as long as they're still in my zone, in my zone, in my what do you call it? The farmer zone,
Mhm.
so to speak. There's zones all up from the equator. So if Oklahoma flows into my
Yeah, like
zone,
6A or 6,
six A, I'm
Yeah,
in
it's like
seven
whatever.
B.
agricultural
Yeah.
I'm
zone.
in I'm in 7B and 7C, I think. But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah,
it
as
should all
long as I'm
work
in
out.
that range there, I'm good. That's just in my opinion. I know people
Yeah.
who do desert stuff, who put, desert biology in their stuff, and they live in, Virginia. But I'm in my head, I'm like, I just want like forest stuff. I want biology that's breaking down leaves and organic matter that's coming from hard oak
Nice.
wood, and that that
Mhm.
that biology that's breaking
Cool.
down, like in the creek system. I've noticed like the algae. I pull the algae out and set it on a rock, and it'll start to break itself down. It'll start to pull biology up out of the rock, and that biology that's breaking down that rock is now on that algae. So I just take that algae, put it into my MO3, and off to the races we go. So I'm
All right.
transferring the biology in my mind. I'm taking biology that's actually breaking down rock, and I'm going to bring that biology into the system that's going to then break down that sand and silt and clay that's like fine particles of rock. If you looked at it, that these things are super hard mineral, so they need biology that's going to break down, which a lot of it's
All
already
right.
there, but
Well, I'm sorry to say this right now, but what we need to do at this very moment is break down ourselves. The show. I'm sorry. I could listen to
sorry, I
you
got a little
talk
tangent
about
there.
this
I
all night,
apologize.
man. We all
That's
could. I know. I
yeah.
unfortunately have a hard cutoff right now at 2 hours into the show,
Oh,
but
I didn't even
I
realize we
want
were
to.
going too long.
I know, dude. Like again,
You
the
just have to
time
come
flew.
back.
The time
Yeah,
flew
no problem.
because
I'd love to come
I'm
back.
listening to
Absolutely.
this. I'm into this. We still got fucking 35 people watching live at 2 hours into the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
cool, cool.
I apologize, but
Yeah, no
we
worries.
do have to call it for tonight.
Boo.
I
I know.
understand.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing with us this passion project.
Yeah,
that
we
you've
really appreciate your
clearly
time.
spent so much time
So
in.
cool.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody that's watching. You guys, I appreciate everybody, man. It's been fun. It's going to continue to go. I don't know how long, but I'm here to
Oh, we'll
stay.
watch it.
So, like I
Yeah.
said, it's a retirement project. So who knows? We'll revisit. Here in I'm on day 400 now. So day 500, day 600, day 7. That's what I
Man,
plan on doing.
can't wait to see this at,
I'm going in the 100-day intervals in my mind. So I like
Love
day
it.
that's my
800.
goal. My goal is let's make it another 100. Let's make it another 100. So
Well,
Wow.
it's one day at a time, truly, and you can
yeah,
watch
yeah,
the progress
yeah.
unfold on your YouTube channel and IG.
Cool.
And yeah, dude, again, just thank you so much for doing what you do and being willing to share it with all of us. Yeah, you're
Appreciate
part of the
appreciate you guys too,
cultivation
man.
conversation family now. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll
Love
send
it.
you a Discord link. We'd love it if you come on in there and
Yeah,
and
a couple
share
people
your
tried
knowledge.
Discord. Like I said, I'm sticking to the two basics right now for me because it's a lot for
I
me
hear
right now because I'm
you.
running a business too. So I'm
I hear you.
like I like the that's the reason it's quick in Instagram. So it's like I'm 3 minutes, boom.
Yeah.
My daily use. So I basically go into my shop, 30 minutes, an hour in the morning, then I'm gone. And I come back in the middle of the day. And I check on everything. I might do a 30-second real clip, then I'm gone again. Then I come back. So that's how my days work. So I'm in and out all day long. So adding more stuff right now, but maybe once I retire and sell the business and do all that good stuff, and we'll get into this
You
full
don't need
time.
more social media, man. You don't need more of that. You got to play God in your
Yeah,
your
exactly.
plants are counting on you. They don't know
Yeah,
they're part of the
exactly.
Truman Show. They have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
We'll
Well,
watch.
thanks
Now
again
we'll
for
sit
coming
back and
on,
watch it.
yeah,
man.
dude.
We'll sit back and watch the turtles grow now.
There you go.
Tell Cooter and Scooter we said hi.
Mhm.
And yeah, till next time, audience, thank you guys for coming and watching live, asking questions. We appreciate you all. Until next time, don't get caught.